Hermit Crab's new home. Once there was a teensy-tiny hermit crab who lived in a teensy-tiny shell. It wasn't an especially beautiful shell, but to the teensy crab, it was home. One day, while the hermit crab was strutting along the beach, a huge wave came down and washed him away. The hermit crab held onto his shell as the water swirled him around. When he peeked outside again, he couldn't believe his eyes. He had been washed into a rock pool filled with beautiful shells. "I think," he said to himself, "that it's time I found myself a new home." So, he wiggled out of his shell and went to a brightly colored shell that gleamed in the water. "This is much better than that boring little shell of mine," he smiled. But the sun shone down on his new shell, and soon the teensy crab began to feel dizzy. "This is no good," he said unhappily. "It's just too colorful in here. I'll have to find another shell." He looked around. There, behind a seaweed branch, was the twistiest shell he had ever seen. "I wonder," he wondered, "if anyone lives there." Sure enough, there was no one inside. The teensy crab wiggled his tail into the twisted spire. Then he wiggled it again. He leaned over and flipped upside down, but he couldn't get comfortable. "Well," he huffed, "this is no good. It's just too twisty in here. I'll have to find another shell." He scuttled past a spiky shell. Too pointy, he thought. He wandered past a shell covered in dots, but no, too spotty, he said. Then he saw a great big shell. "I say," he said, "it's like a palace." He scuttled in right away and was sure that he'd found the perfect home. But that night, after the sun went down, the teensy crab couldn't sleep. The shell was full of creepy echoes and a constant breeze kept him awake. "This is no good at all," he moaned. "I miss my nice little home." The next morning, he scuttled back across the rock pool. There was his little shell, just where he had left it. But all around it, some other crabs were arguing about who would take it over. The spotted crab thought the twisty crab was too twisty for it. The twisty crab thought the colorful crab was too colorful for it. And they could all see that the big crab was far too big. The teensy crab scuttled to his shell. "Hey," said the spotted crab, "get to the back of the line." "But this is my house," said the teensy crab. "It can't be," said the big crab. "No one would ever leave an awesome house like this." While the others argued, the teensy crab scuttled away with his head hung low. He knew that he should search for a new shell, but deep in his heart, he knew that there was only one shell that would feel like home to him. And suddenly, he had a great idea. He rushed back to his shell. "Everybody, everybody," he called. "Follow me." The other crabs looked at him suspiciously. "Is this a trick to get us away from this shell?" they asked. No, it isn't," said the teensy crab. "Come and see." He led them to the shell covered in dots. "Wow," shouted the spotty crab. "That's perfect for me." As Spotty climbed into his shell, the teensy crab led the rest to the twisty shell, then the colorful shell, then the spiky shell, and finally, the great big shell. Each time, the right crab got in. "Thank you, teensy crab," they all called from their perfect homes. And at last, the teensy crab went back to his teensy shell. He crawled back inside, and it felt just right. Ah, he smiled. There is no place like home.